Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. If you're just landing here, always happy to be with you and do what we do here, keeping an eye on what's going on. And I read based on, a couple of topics that my spirit guides give me to touch on. I so appreciate you. You all can see that I changed the angle again. I still got our protective goddess in back of me. Unfortunately, you can't see all of her, but we got to make some compromises. You all overwhelmingly, people, you said you wanted to see the table, see the cards. So shall it be. When you're right, you're right. I get it. And I always want to make, I appreciate your time, your attention, and supporting the channel. So I want to make it, we work together and make this happen, right? All right. What's up with this new board of peace that Trump is promoting now? Apparently, he has invited 60 different countries, but we know primarily among them, he's been in talks with and issued a wonderful invitation to Putin, right? His right hand, basically. So I'm want to go to spirit. We're going to get right into it today, you all. Is this essentially, is he trying to basically boot out or take over the UN and NATO? No surprises there. I know a lot of you have mentioned that, and there's been a lot of talk about his plans to, basically either exit NATO, which he talked about a long time ago, many times, but now just going full on and presenting this alternative to it. But there's also, as all things with Trump, it's pay to play, right? So we're understanding that in this new proposed board of peace that apparently was sanctioned, not all the way, but the UN was apparently on board with something like that in reference to Gaza, but they only approved it through 2027. Now Trump is coming in, and basically revamping all of that to his advantage and saying, number one, he would be chair for life, however long that is. We'll leave that there. He would be chair for life, presumably meaning whomever in the U.S. behind him would take over. But also that after a period of, I think, 3 years, that participating nations would have to contribute $1 billion just to stay in this board. For what? How that, what's happening with that money? Again, pay for play. Here, what tried to fly out? I'm not surprised. The Four of Pentacles tried to fly out. Holding on, want the money, give it all to us. But here's what I want to see. I want confirmation. That's what I got in my spirit, that this is his plan to basically make NATO and therefore and also the UN less providing an alternative to that he would have total control over, or the US would have total control over. And it's not just about Gaza. Here's the thing, the UN apparently authorized some sort of board or peace council in regards to rebuilding Gaza through 2027. But what we're seeing in this board of peace is it's like, Gaza's just the start. This is about worldwide, going throughout Europe, etc. And the plans that apparently Trump and Putin are hashing about what's going to happen in the future of Europe. All right, so Spirit, please show me the truth of what's happening with this board of peace. Is this part of a larger plan, specifically between Trump, you know who I mean, between Trump and Putin, to exit out the UN and NATO? We have the Knight of Cups that came at the bottom of the deck. I'm not going to ignore the Devil. Oh my gosh, the Devil, the Sun, the Empress. Ooh, okay. I never ignore, even though I shuffle and I tend to, pull cards. But if I get majors like that at the bottom, I'm never going to ignore those, the major arcana. So let's backtrack a second. First card on the bottom was the Knight of Cups. That is, it looks like some, a cooperative agreement, primarily, again, between Trump and Putin. Then we have the Devil was the second card that I saw. So making it look tempting, making it look, proposing this border peace as if it is designed with the best intentions of, the people throughout the region in mind. But come on now, we know what the devil does. The devil creates an attachment, a bond, sucks you into something that ultimately is not good for you at all. What's interesting about that too, Spirit is reminding me, many of these countries that have been invited, again, I saw 60 countries have been invited, of course, many throughout Europe, etc. But so far, they're all agreeing. They're saying, even Mark Carney of Canada, making some powerful moves, Prime Minister. In China, talking about a new world order, but we'll get to that a little bit later or in another video. But it's the idea that, yeah, we're down, because how are they gonna say no? They've got to keep their countries in play. But that doggone devil is sending signals left, right, and center. Watch who you get in bed with, right? Then we have the Empress talking about the new world, or countries wanting to make sure that they are in play. And especially, I'm getting, for informational purposes. You don't want to not be in the rooms and not be a part of this and not know what's going on. So that's the Empress and the Sun, because they want to protect life. They want to protect their regions. They want to continue to somehow figure out how to be in play. But does this result in basically taking away the roles that the UN and specifically NATO have been serving? Is Trump's plan with Putin, because all of it's the two of them together, is it to destabilize and perhaps even abolish eventually those agencies? I don't mean agencies, you know what I mean. The Nine of Cups, that's their desire. Nine of Cups is wish fulfillment, right? That's the desire. Because there's too much resistance, and talk about resistance. I just pulled the Nine of Wands. There's so much resistance to allowing Trump's vision. The UN and the NATO do not work for Trump. And so Trump is saying, then that's fine. I'm going to go create my own with my boy in the background. I'll be the chair. But what does that really mean? Who's running things? So yeah, I'm getting that loud and clear, you all. That's it. Temperance. Change it up. Alchemy. Changing the way the international intergovernmental bodies have been typically and historically cooperating together. His idea is to rearrange all of that based on the ideas that he and Putin have hashed out around who's really going to control not just Gaza and the rebuilding of Gaza, but the whole European area. Now, what Spirit is reminding me of with that, did you all hear about, apparently, now I don't know, I can't vet this, Miss used to be a journalist. If you don't know, it is a part of my background. I used to be a newspaper journalist for many years. So I didn't get to do the real research on this, but I did see a number of things about that Ukraine put out some not quite true sensitive information and tested the waters and shared it with the U.S. intelligence to see if it landed, if the Kremlin got hold of it. Sure enough, they were like 5 minutes later, after they put out whatever this information that wasn't really real, it was a test. They wanted to see if there were leaks. They wanted to see if the Kremlin was going to get direct information from the U.S. And apparently they're saying that is exactly what happened. That whatever this not true, this test case out of Ukraine came out, like 10 minutes later, the Kremlin started talking about it, had wind of it. So that's a part of what's happening here is there's a concerted effort that they understand, that the Ukraine understands. Can't get my words out fast enough. Sorry about that. I'll slow down. That Ukraine understood and but wanted to test, because again, like, where are we even in that peace deal? What's the latest progress on that peace deal? And Ukraine said, okay, let's see what's really going on here. We know whose side you are on, US. Clearly you're making that blatant, all but blasting it out of trumpets that you want any peace deal in Ukraine to go Russia's way, but they failed that test. Apparently, this information got leaked immediately. Spirit, is this going to backfire? Ultimately, is this going to backfire? And they're reminding me as well, because even though Mark Carney, who's trip to China, and he said, I saw a video clip, so I know this is real, it was out his mouth. He started talking about the formation of a new world order, understanding with everything happening right now that countries have got to figure out what they're going to do outside of the U.S. Trade agreements, etc. But is this going to happen? The idea that part of this peace council or this board of peace would always be led by Trump, and assuming his replacement, is that going to get squashed? Because one of the things that I saw Carney said, even though he's accepted on behalf of Canada, accepted the invitation to this new board, other countries have to do it. They got to be in play. But he also said this thing about the paying the $1 billion to be a member, not so sure about that. Spirit, is this going to fail? Let's just go there. Is this going to fail? Is this board of peace going to crumble? 5 of Swords. Let's keep going. Is it going to crumble? 8 of Cups. People walking away. People meaning countries. Queen of Pentacles. That could be, I'm seeing the Italian, the leader, what's her name, Moroni, or something, forgive me if I got that wrong, but the Italian leader, and Ursula. And the Knight of Cups, moving toward it for now, but fluid cups. Still trying to figure out what they're going to do. Will they pay? Will this be turned into something that countries actually pay to become a part or stay a part of? Nine of Swords. For what? $1 billion? No. So I get it. Spirit, is this something that may gain momentum for now, initially trying to rebuild Gaza or other places, but will lose steam, ultimately will go away? Is this something that's in play for now, but will ultimately go away? 5 of Wands, it creates more conflict than it solves. I mean, are these countries really going to sign on to something that, and basically are being told up front going in the door, but I'm running the show. You're welcome to have a seat at the table, but I'm running the show. Trump speaking. Doesn't make sense. And the 8 of Swords, exactly. And so this is, bottom line, we can't say no, but we're only going to say yes for so long. Will this go away? High Priestess. They're going to talk to one another. Just as Carney is going to China, I think he went to Qatar as well, and will continue. And Keir Starmer, UK, he's hedging. I get it. He's been a sort of a front whisperer, some people have called him, because he's managed to not make things, not let it become hostile. So he keeps playing both ends of the spectrum. I get it, but there's something there with the High Priestess that these countries are going to talk to one another. And also, I feel like this is the UN and NATO, the allies within those organizations that continue to talk to one another. Is this, what's his name? NATO's Secretary General. What's his name? Mark Rutte out of the Netherlands. Is this him in secret talks, High Priestess? Is this him in secret talks with other nations to counter what Trump is proposing in this border peace? Is that what he's doing? We've got the 4 of Wands. That's what they're doing. The pact that exists between these other nations is going to hold. They're going to play along with this border peace thing, but it's only going to last for so long. It's not going to become, they will not be, these organizations will not be X'd out for Pentacles comes back. Remember that fell out of the deck when I first started shuffling. So they're going to hold on. They're going to hold on to the union that they have, and understanding that these are agencies that have been, or I keep saying agencies, forgive me if that's not the right term, but these are organizations that have held for a very long time for very good reasons, and they will not be dismantled. However, the Three of Swords comes up. I think that's just a general feeling, Spirit is saying. That's just a general feeling how disturbing and sad and awful it is that our allies and other nations are even being put in this position. Like that he's actually pushing the envelope that far to make them have to disperse their energy. So now instead of just the UN and the NATO, now we got to deal with this so-called board of peace, at least for the time being. And the Nine of Pentacles, because this also comes down to trade. This also comes down to tariffs. This also comes down to these other nations and world leaders still walking that tightrope and fine line of trade agreements, and how much it's going to cost their countries to not play ball with Trump. Dang. That's heavy, you all. That's heavy. But it's not gonna last. They gotta go along to get along for right now. Again, they gotta know what's going on, or at least feel like they're tapped in to what's going on. But the idea of basically being, you gotta pay $1 billion just to sit at the table and listen, because you ain't in charge of nothing. You just gotta listen. Come on. All right, y'all. Second thing I want to look at domestically is, of course, Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. We heard, I think as of Friday, Trump was making noises about basically, threatening to bring in military, invoke the Insurrection Act and bring in 1,500 military troops out of Alaska, I found out as well. That's sort of interesting. Why out of Alaska? Actually, let me ask that. Why out of Alaska, Spirit? Why troops stationed in Alaska that have been told to prepare and be put on hold? I don't know why. I keep seeing Putin coming down that red carpet in Alaska last year. Remember that? Alternate reality. Why Alaska? Judgment. Ace of Cups. I'm being told don't ignore that. The Lovers. That's why. So they've known about this for a while. Whoever the military commanders of the troops stationed in Alaska, they've known about this. They've been told about this long before we were told about it. Perhaps going back to December. And I'm also getting Chicago back in the mix. Remember when they were talking about bringing in troops in Chicago? They've been on alert for quite some time. I feel when I get aces, if you read with me, my aces are a confirmation, yes, from Spirit. So they have been these troops in Alaska have been on alert for some time. The Lovers being wait for the decision to come down and be made. But why Alaska, Spirit? Why? Why troops out of Alaska? Page of Swords and a victory. There's something about the composition of the troops in the military in Alaska that have been stationed there. I feel like there's been some sort of vetting, or I want to be clear, because part of what we know is there is a resistance, and he has been warned. Trump and Hexeth have been warned and cautioned without working against them, because we know that's what happens. The military leaders and commanders have said, we're not so sure if sure, troops have to obey orders, but Spirit has said in my readings in recent months, even going back to the summer, and many others on this platform and others have said, there is a real genuine reluctance within the military to cooperate with any of this. And the fact is, should they go into Minneapolis or any other city, it may be more so to contain ICE than to do anything with the people. Spirit, am I getting that right? Have Trump and Hegseth continued to be cautioned? I don't want to say warned, cautioned by military command. This may not work the way you think it will. Page of Wands, Eight of Wands. I'm sorry, Eight of Pentacles, and the Moon. I think so, you all. So Page of Wands. Yes, let's talk about being ready to go. Let's do the training exercises. There have been preparations made now for quite some time with these troops on standby in Alaska. Preparations made for quite some time. Eight of Pentacles, talking about exactly what to expect and what to do should you be deployed to, should the Insurrection Act be enacted, and should you be deployed. But here comes the Moon. Worried about it, not wanting to do it, recognizing that ultimately, even though there's something about the troops who specifically deployed to Alaska that may make them more amenable to following orders. That's how I'm getting it. But there's the Moon. Like there's an unseen consequence to doing this. They don't want to, and there's the King of Pentacles. This I feel is a commander or Hegseth. Is this Hegseth? Strength. Okay, this is definitely a military commander or commanders who are saying this is unconstitutional. Seven of Pentacles, assessing the situation and trying to hold off because it's unconstitutional. This really is, and that's what Spirit has said for months now. This really is about forcing members of the military who are sworn to uphold the Constitution, not to mention even the commanders in these positions having to uphold the Constitution. Are they fearful of being prosecuted? If they follow these orders in a way that harms the American people, are they fearful of being prosecuted? Knight of Swords. Decisions that they later regret, or decisions that they are being subject to that they later regret. Two of Cups. The partnership with the commander in chief. How can I even say that? But the partnership having to, on the one hand, obey his orders, but on the other hand, because twos are decisions and partnerships. Twos are about having to navigate. On the one hand, this is what I know I signed up for. On the other hand, the person who oversees me is telling me to do something I know is not right. Spirit. And there's the Four of Swords, calming down. There's somebody, he backed up for now off of enacting the Insurrection Act and actually deploying these troops, because there is somebody in the background saying, you know what? This may not go as planned. Spirit, if he does send troops to Minneapolis, for starters, will the military protect the people over ICE? Will the military protect the people? Will they protect the citizens? The Hermit, digging in, doing their jobs. The welfare of the people. The Hermit, ruled by Virgo, is very much the health of the people, the mental health, the physical health of the people. And the Two of Wands as well comes. How do we move forward? I think this is more diplomacy, if you will, between the people and ICE. This will be the role of the military. Is that what they're being told by their commanders? If this happens, your role is going to be more of a mediating force. We got it. We got it in the bag, y'all. Ace of Wands. That's what it is. So rather than go in and completely, your role is to go in and back up these ICE agents and be an add-on essentially to what they're doing. They're being told, your role is going to be to mediate, to de-escalate, to protect the American people, while at the same time we know you can't go in there and like jack up these agents, but like you're not on their team. You are not, this is not a tag team situation. All right. All right, you all. I hope that was helpful. Again, I appreciate you. Please go to my website. First of all, if you want to know more about me, if you're new to my channel, it's trulytouchedbytarot.com. All together, trulytouchedbytarot.com. You can learn more about me on the About page, but also check out my classes that are coming up. One specifically on February 15th, Practical Magic Using Tarot Part 2, because we're going to get into some stuff this whole year. A lot of my focus in my practice is going to have to do with what I'm calling energetic sovereignty. And it is about a lot of what we're facing politically, economically, and otherwise, being more empowered and using this as a tool which tells all of our stories, which is about the human dynamic and the human journey, the joys, the challenges, all of it right here in archetypes, energy archetypes, using those archetypes to really familiarize ourselves with what they do, identify that, using this as an anchor to shift the energy, raise your vibration, manifest, maintain, be resilient, all the things, you all. This is some good stuff. I'd love to have you there. $36 for a 90-minute live workshop with me on Zoom. And then you also get the recording afterward to keep and use and refer back to. So I would love to have you there. Please go check it out on my website. It's on the book online page. All right. You get to Truly Touch if I could say it, trulytouchedbytarot.com. Go to my book online page and you'll get all the juicy details. I'm also offering temporarily, I'm probably only going to do it through February. I'm offering a special discounted off my normal hourly rate, a discounted your personal year 2026 reading, right? That's where we go into